I just have 4 simple words for the governor of Florida. Stay in your lane. Now, I appreciate Ron DeSantis, governor of the Sunshine State. I helped get him elected. I'm on the air in the Orlando, Daytona radio markets. I talked up Governor DeSantis every day during the election. But let's be really clear. Though he has been one of the formidable pushback forces against the COVID hysteria, which has swept our nation, he has opened Florida, but it wasn't always open. He has got the schools up and running and life is normal, but he was a part of the problem, though in his revisionist historical remembrance, he doesn't quite see it that way. Donald Trump, in a recent interview, took a shot at Governor DeSantis for not acknowledging one way or the other if he has taken the booster. And basically, these cowards.
Do you reconsider your push for it, or what's your view now on the vaccine in general?
Well, I've taken it. I've had the booster. Many politicians, I watched a couple of politicians be interviewed, and one of the questions was, did you get the booster? Because they had the vaccine. And they're answering it like, in other words, the answer is yes, but they don't want to say it. Because they're gutless. You got to say it. Whether you had it or not, say it. Right. But the fact is that I think the vaccine has saved tens of millions of people throughout the world. Okay. I have had absolutely no side effects. I've had it like other people have had it, nothing special. I've had it.
See, DeSantis is trying to have it both ways. On the one hand, he has been vaccinated, but he wants to identify with that very strong anti-vax mandate group of people which make up the Trump base. But can I say this, that Trump, who just has a natural instinct for politics, unlike a career politician, Trump knows his base and he knows it well. And though there are a few people that get upset every time he brings up vaccination and getting vaxxed, and in some extreme fringes within the conservative movement, there are people saying, I'll never vote for Trump again because of that. What Donald Trump has done is said, you do you, I'll do me, and that's, as Americans, what we have the right to do. What I won't do is mandate it, and DeSantis wants in on that. Well, Trump has said he's been boosted, but DeSantis won't acknowledge it one way or the other. Can you imagine Governor DeSantis on a debate stage during a primary with Donald Trump? Because one thing Donald Trump is really, really good at, he knows your weakness and he knows where you're vulnerable. And when he gets that typical career politician in a place where he's trying to nuance an answer, just ask Jeb Bush. Ask those guys how well that does not work out. Ask how seasoned debaters like Ted Cruz ended up folding like a cheap suit. Now, Ted Cruz has become a very ardent supporter of the president, and even waffled back and forth. Lindsey Graham recently said to Mitch McConnell, hey, you better kiss and make up with Donald Trump. He is the Republican Party. And if he decides to run again, it's his. But Governor DeSantis doesn't quite see it that way, and I get it. He has done so much to keep Florida open, and it has become the glaring contradiction between the Sunshine State on the left coast, i.e. California, and the Sunshine State on the East Coast, Florida. Polar opposites, and yet one is flourishing and one is not. And we are very thankful for what Ron DeSantis has done. But Ron DeSantis, a little myth that Donald Trump would insinuate he was a coward for not acknowledging whether he was boosted or not. Because again, on a debate stage, Trump is just going to look at him and say, why don't you admit it? Why won't you admit it? Just say it. Just say it. If you are, just say it. And if DeSantis takes that career politician posture of trying to duck and dodge and weave, people are going to see through that, and he will drop to zero support in the very next day's polls. There's no ifs, ands, or buts about it. So Trump hit him where he's vulnerable. So 24 hours later, Team DeSantis tried to strike back, and DeSantis was in a podcast. He said, well, the one thing that he regrets is that he didn't push back against the Trump shutdowns. And then later in the podcast, he quickly pivoted and said, well, it was really, President Trump was getting bad recommendations from Fauci. Let's back the revisionist train up here a little bit. I am a history teacher, taught history for over 22 years in the classroom, and I love history. I love an accurate accounting of history, and I can't stand revisionist, rewritten, watered down to make you look good history. And that's what Ron DeSantis has tried to pull here. Really simple put. In the beginning, these governors all went nuts. It began with the rhino governor in Ohio, Governor Mike DeWine.
Well, I was just decided that here in Ohio, we're just going to shut everything down, and the only thing that can be open are liquor stores and Walmart, and you can't go anywhere. And if you go into a supermarket here, we're only letting 8 people at a time in, even though the building's designed for 800.
I mean, that was the kind of insanity in Ohio. Well, New York couldn't let a rhino be stricter than they were. So then Governor Cuomo was going to come in, and he was going to shut all kinds of things down. But Bill de Blasio in New York City said, well, we're not going to shut down. And then ultimately, New York went into hyper mode, and they had to up Ohio. Then Michigan had to up New York. Then California had to up everybody. And everybody was caught up in this madness, including Ron DeSantis. DeSantis closed businesses, closed bars, closed indoor dining, closed the beaches, closed schools. In fact, I believe he was one of the very first governors to close schools. In fact, he wasn't allowing people from certain states like New York, New Jersey, Louisiana, places that had a high COVID count at that time, into the state of Florida. And if they did come in, they had to self-quarantine for 2 weeks. He even had police checkpoints on the interstates in Florida, checking to make sure that this mandate of his was being followed. He was even having pastors arrested, state police officers going into churches arresting pastors for having indoor services. Rodney Howard Brown, does that name ring a bell? And it was when Rodney Howard Brown engaged a legal team and pushed back on the state of Florida, citing their constitutional right to assemble. That was like the wake-up call. I can tell you, I led a PSA, public service announcement, in the state of Florida, directed at the governor, who had closed the schools, had closed the daycare centers, had shut down all the rec programs like Little League and everything. It was all shut down. And I started a PSA campaign of, Mr. Governor, you and the other governors across this country, you're going to have some answering to do when this madness is finally over. By taking all of the safety nets away that we have of keeping an eye on children to make sure they're safe, teachers, coaches, etc. By taking all those external eyes away, that safety net. How many kids are trapped at home with abusers, molesters, worse? Who's watching them? Who can report when something's not right? It was very shortly after we released that campaign in the state of Florida, about, I'm going to say 2 weeks to 10 days after we launched that, Governor DeSantis, that along with Rodney Howard-Brown, announced sweeping rollback, said that's it, we're done with all of this madness, and he began to open up. But Georgia actually opened up before Florida. Again, a little history here. So, Mr. Governor, if you're going to make that assertion, you don't want to get on a debate stage with Donald Trump and say, well, I should have pushed back on your mandates and your lockdowns, because Trump is going to go after you like a pit bulldog with AIDS. He is going to latch into you, and he is not going to let go, and he is going to publicly, verbally thrash you on that platform for having gone way beyond anything he even recommended at the time. So, Mr. Governor, you've done a great job keeping Florida open and normal and free now, moving forward. Stay in your lane. Stay in Florida. Keep Florida moving in the right direction. Work with Donald Trump. If he decides he is running, get behind him. Because remember, you really didn't win Florida in a landslide. And remember, I helped, through my radio show, getting the word out about you to make sure that the guy you were running against, and remember, he was under indictment for embezzlement. Days before the election, he had that drunken, drug-infested party at some hotel suite, and they had trashed the hotel, and there were prostitutes and drugs, and there were photographs of people passed out. And you still barely beat him. Barely. You beat him because Donald Trump endorsed you, campaigned for you. Have a little loyalty. Get in line, stay in your lane, and you can do so much to bolster the Trump agenda. I like your policies. I like what you're doing. Keep fighting. Keep Florida free. You were one of the first to say, oh no, there'll be no vax mandates here. God love you. Thank you. But you are no match to go up against Donald Trump. He will eat your lunch. And don't get caught up in the fact that there are some people up on Capitol Hill who like the Trump policies but feel that Donald Trump is a messenger, is damaged goods, so we got to get rid of him, but we got to keep those policies. Remember, people who live in Capitol Hill, they live in an alternate reality anyway. You know, every day, whether they be Democrat or Republican, they go to the Hill and they tell America how to live their lives. I have a son who lives there now, who is an associate pastor of a church in the D.C. area, and he's called me up, Dad, there's like these little tent cities everywhere throughout this D.C., our nation's capital. And you got homeless have just overtaken the city. They can't fix a homeless problem within hundreds of feet of our Washington and national monuments, but they're going to go into Congress and tell the rest of us how we're supposed to live life. Are you kidding me? You can't run your own broken city. And they've just been placed under a vaccine passport nonsense. My son walked into a coffee shop and was told he couldn't get a cup of coffee because he doesn't have, quote, a vax card. And some of the things that I've been talking about here, and my kids are normal kids, you know, it's Dad, you know, it's Dad. He actually called me and said, Dad, it's just like you said. You think? Think the old man might know something? He said, Dad, I couldn't believe it. He said, I actually looked at the person, you're being serious? I got to have proof of ID and vaccination to buy a cup of coffee, but you'll let homeless people and undocumented, unregistered people vote? Oh! Are we getting it now? But Governor DeSantis, please, 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 stay in your lane. Don't listen to the hype you get from certain politicians stroking you from Washington, D.C. I know you're surrounded by your team there. They're all excited about what's going on in the state of Florida. And come on, Mr. Governor, you could do this through the whole country. I'd like to see you work with Trump on getting some of this done. Don't listen to other quasi fallen from grace conservatives like Ann Inheat Coulter. Honestly, there's something I want to call her, but I'm trying to be nice. I am a pastor, and I do have a church service to conduct tonight, and I, would like to kind of stay in the right spirit and frame of mind. But Ann Inheat Coulter, I mean, honestly, one minute she's in love and lust with Bill Maher, and, she had a thing for Mitt Romney and Chris Christie, really, Fudgy the Whale. Then she was all in on Team Trump. Now she's all anti-Trump. And we're so over Trump. No, we're over you, Ann. There's not one actual credible conservative news outlet that will have anything to do with you anymore. Because they woke up to the fact of what I had been saying about you for years. You're not a conservative by conviction. You're a conservative by the coinage it puts in your pocket. You're just playing a role, honey. Done with you. Governor, don't listen to people like that. This is still very much Donald Trump's party. He's got the popularity, he's got the momentum, and even though some within his base are a little upset that he still talks vaccines and boosters, and I am not in any way a fan of any of that, I get why he does it. And again, his political instinct. He knows that 95% of boomers are vaxxed. Who is that 95%? They're the ones that actually vote in primaries. He knows, and he's got his hand on the pulse of where his base is. Trust me on this. Don't, this is like when a college team in baseball wins the College World Series and thinks they're ready to take on the Yankees. Stay in your lane, Governor. Stay in your lane.
Well, we have some of the dumbest leaders in the world. We have losers. We have losers.
They're losers. They're just losers.
We have very stupid people. We have stupid leadership. How stupid are our leaders? How stupid are these politicians to allow this to happen? How stupid are they?
Hey, that's it for this rant. Thank you so much for watching. Make sure you're subscribed to the channel, smack the bell, click the word all, get notification of my rants, and don't forget, check us out on Rumble.